Ladies and gentlemen, how often do we hear that being alone is something to fear, something to avoid? We've all been there feeling that tug of discomfort when there's no one around to fill the space. But I want to invite you today to consider a different perspective, one where solitude is not a curse, but a blessing. The truth is, learning to be happy alone can open doors to a life filled with inner strength, peace, and personal fulfillment. Let's start by acknowledging the simple fact that being alone does not equate to being lonely. In fact, loneliness is a feeling, a passing state of mind, while solitude is a choice, a powerful tool for self-growth. Alone doesn't have to mean empty. In solitude, we can truly meet ourselves without the distractions or expectations of others. We begin to ask the questions that are often buried under the weight of our busy lives. Who am I when I am not defined by others? What do I want when there's no one else's opinion to influence me? In this space of quiet, we have the opportunity to rediscover who we are. Think about it. When was the last time you spent real, uninterrupted time with yourself, without judgment, without rushing, without the need to please anyone? It's in these moments of stillness that we often realize the profound wisdom and strength we've always carried within. Now, I know it's not always easy. In fact, there's often discomfort when we face ourselves, when we strip away the distractions. But in that discomfort lies an incredible opportunity to become our own greatest ally. When we're alone, we don't have to hide parts of ourselves. We can embrace our imperfections, our flaws, and our messy human experiences. We are enough exactly as we are. Solitude gives us the freedom to choose our own path, to create without external pressure or comparison. Have you ever noticed that when you're not concerned with what others think, your creativity flows more freely? When you're not trying to meet others' expectations, you can hear your own desires more clearly. It's a chance to live authentically, unshackled by the roles we sometimes feel forced to play. Being happy alone isn't just about being independent, though it's about being present. I'm talking about the kind of presence where you notice the little things, the way the light hits the trees in the afternoon, the smell of rain on the earth, the quiet hum of your own heartbeat. Solitude teaches us to find joy in these small moments, to revel in the beauty that's already here. And the best part, we don't need anyone else's approval to enjoy it. In fact, learning to enjoy your own company often leads to a deeper compassion for yourself. We are often our harshest critics, but when we sit with ourselves, truly sit with our emotions, our struggles, and our joys, we begin to soften. We practice self-compassion not because we're perfect, but because we're human. And in that humanness, there's a wellspring of grace and love waiting to be given to ourselves. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Happiness is not something that depends on others. It's not something we have to seek outside of ourselves. It comes from within, and sometimes the best way to access it is to be alone, to allow space for our hearts and minds to align with what truly matters. Solitude is not something to be feared, but a tool of empowerment, a chance to reconnect with our deepest truths. I encourage each of you to embrace your time alone, not as isolation, but as an opportunity for self-discovery, joy, and growth. In doing so, you'll find that you don't need anyone else to complete you because you're already whole. Thank you. We live in a world that often tells us that solitude is something to avoid, something unnatural, something that must be filled. We're told that we need others constantly to feel whole, to feel worthy, to feel connected. But what if, instead of fearing the silence, we could learn to embrace it? What if the very space that feels uncomfortable is actually the place where our greatest growth, clarity, and joy reside? Think about it. How often do we find ourselves running from the stillness? When was the last time you sat in silence with yourself, just you, without distractions? No music, no phone, no conversation, no agenda, just the vast expanse of your own thoughts, your own feelings, and the hum of your own heartbeat. It can feel strange at first, right? Almost unnatural. But that's because we've been taught that to be alone is to be incomplete. Yet the truth is that it is precisely in moments of solitude that we have the opportunity to hear ourselves clearly, to step back and see who we truly are when we strip away the layers of other people's opinions, expectations, and distractions. Solitude isn't a prison. It's not a punishment. It's a sanctuary, a space where we can reconnect with our deepest selves. It's in these moments of stillness that we can ask ourselves the big questions: what do I truly want? What do I need to feel at peace? We get to reflect, reset, and reimagine what our lives can look like when we aren't constantly trying to live up to someone else's idea of success or happiness. And here's the power of it all: being alone doesn't mean we are lonely. It means we are whole. It means we have the ability to be our own best company, our own source of joy, and our own guide to the path forward. When we stop looking outside ourselves for validation, we start to realize that everything we need to feel fulfilled and at peace is already within us. So let's shift the narrative around solitude. It is not something to be avoided, but something to be celebrated. The quiet is where we can find our strength, our creativity, and our true sense of self. In the solitude, we don't just survive, we thrive. When we allow ourselves the gift of solitude, we open the door to something profound, the chance to truly meet ourselves. Too often, we are caught up in the rush of life, swept away by the noise of others' expectations, the constant buzz of social media, the endless need to achieve, to be somewhere, to be someone. In all that movement, it's easy to lose sight of who we are beneath it all. But when we step into solitude, when we choose to spend time alone, something magical happens. We begin to hear our own voice more clearly. It's in these quiet moments that we start to notice things about ourselves that we might have overlooked: our likes, our dislikes, our passions, our fears. It's as if the noise of the world falls away and we can finally hear what's been quietly calling us all along. We begin to discover the parts of ourselves that have been waiting patiently for us to pay attention, those things we might have been too afraid or too distracted to acknowledge. What's truly beautiful about self-discovery is that it's a journey, not a destination. It's a process of peeling back the layers that we've built up over time, layers of self-doubt, of what others think we should be, of what we've been taught to believe about ourselves. But in the stillness of solitude, we have the space to ask ourselves, what do I truly want? What makes my heart beat a little faster? What do I need to feel alive? Self-discovery also invites us to be honest with ourselves, to confront our fears, our insecurities, and the parts of ourselves we've hidden away. And that can be uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the key to unlocking the most authentic version of who we are. When we sit with ourselves, we don't just discover what we love, we also learn what we are capable of. We begin to understand our own resilience, our strength, and our ability to face challenges head-on, even when no one else is around. There's a freedom that comes from getting to know yourself without judgment. When we are alone, we can let go of the masks we wear for the world. We don't have to pretend to be something we're not. There's no one to impress, no one to compete with. In solitude, we can be real raw, vulnerable, and imperfect. And in that rawness, we start to see ourselves as we truly are, not as we think we should be. This is the beauty of self-discovery. It's about showing up for yourself no matter how messy or uncertain the journey may feel. It's about learning to love yourself not in spite of your flaws, but because of them. It's in the quiet moments alone that we come to realize we don't need anyone else to define us. We already know who we are, and that knowing is the most powerful thing we can carry with us. When we are alone, we are often faced with the powerful opportunity to tap into something we don't always recognize in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, our own inner strength. There's something about solitude that invites us to reconnect with the deep well of resilience that resides within us all. It's a strength that doesn't come from external validation or accolades, but from the quiet knowing that we can navigate whatever comes our way, even when no one else is around. In moments of solitude, we are not just left with our thoughts, we are left with ourselves, with our ability to endure, to persevere, and to rise again. It's in these times of aloneness that we truly learn what we're made of. Think about the times when you faced a challenge, when the world seemed to turn its back on you, or when you were left to find your way in the darkness. In those moments, you didn't just survive, you found the strength to push forward, even when the path ahead was unclear. And often, that strength revealed itself when you were standing alone. Reclaiming our inner strength means acknowledging that we don't need to lean on others to carry us through every hardship. Of course, support is important, but there's something profoundly empowering about realizing that at the end of the day, we have the ability to face life's challenges on our own. Solitude gives us the chance to reconnect with this part of ourselves, the part that has always been there, quietly waiting for us to remember. When we take the time to sit with ourselves without distractions or expectations from the outside world, we begin to hear our inner voice more clearly. We start to understand what we are truly capable of, what we need to feel centered and strong. And in that stillness, we begin to notice that our strength isn't something we have to fight for. It's something we already possess, buried beneath layers of doubt and fear. It's often in solitude that we rediscover our purpose, the thing that drives us when no one else is watching, when there's no applause or recognition. Our inner strength isn't about grand gestures, it's about the quiet, persistent courage to keep moving forward. Even when we feel uncertain, even when we doubt ourselves, it's about showing up for ourselves day after day and trusting that no matter what happens, we can handle it. And in reclaiming this strength, we also discover our ability to create. We are no longer bound by the expectations of others or the noise that surrounds us. We can set our own pace, make our own choices, and live our lives with intention. This kind of strength isn't just about resilience in the face of hardship, it's about empowerment. It's about knowing that no matter how alone we might feel at times, we are never truly powerless. We are always capable of finding our way, even when the road is uncertain. When we reclaim our inner strength, we learn that we are enough, just as we are. We are not incomplete or broken. We are whole with everything we need already within us. The more we sit in solitude and embrace our own company, the more we realize that we don't need anyone else to complete us. Our strength is ours to claim, ours to cultivate, and ours to carry with us through every challenge, every triumph, and every quiet moment in between. In the quiet moments of solitude, there's an invitation to embrace a truth that many of us struggle to accept. We are not perfect, and we don't have to be. In a world that constantly pushes us to perform, to look a certain way, to achieve and be more, it's easy to get caught in the trap of perfectionism. We think we need to have it all together, to show the world only our best selves, our polished, curated version. But when we spend time alone, we are reminded of something powerful, that imperfection is not a flaw. It is part of what makes us beautifully human. In solitude, we get to experience ourselves fully, not as the perfect, idealized version we think we should be, but as we truly are: vulnerable, messy, uncertain, certain, and sometimes broken. And that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay, it's liberating, because when we stop trying to be perfect, we give ourselves permission to simply be, to exist as we are, without judgment, without the pressure to meet some external standard. We stop measuring our worth based on the expectations of others and start seeing the beauty in our flaws, our scars, and the things that make us unique. This is where true growth begins. We can't grow if we're always trying to hide the parts of ourselves that we deem unworthy. When we embrace our imperfections, we open the door to a deeper level of self-acceptance. We stop running from our mistakes and instead we begin to learn from them. It's in the cracks, the missteps, the moments when we fall short that we often find our greatest lessons. We realize that failure is not something to fear, it's a teacher, guiding us toward greater wisdom and compassion. In solitude, we learn to be kinder to ourselves, to speak to ourselves as we would to a dear friend, gently, with care, and without condemnation. We stop expecting perfection and instead, we learn to appreciate progress. Every day that we show up for ourselves, even in our imperfection, is a victory. Every time we try, even if we don't succeed, is an opportunity to grow. Embracing imperfection means letting go of the need to be good enough in the eyes of the world. It means accepting that our worth is not determined by how well we perform, how much we achieve, or how others see us. It's a deep, quiet knowing that we are worthy simply because we exist imperfections and all. When we embrace this truth, we stop holding ourselves to unattainable standards, and we give ourselves the freedom to be real, raw, and unfiltered. And this is where true connection happens. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect, we give others the space to do the same. We create an environment of honesty, of vulnerability, where we can show up as our authentic selves without fear of rejection. We realize that we are not alone in our imperfections, that we all share this human experience of struggling, failing, and growing. It's in these shared moments of imperfection that we find connection, empathy, and compassion. So let's stop trying to be perfect. Let's stop running from the very parts of ourselves that make us real, because in our imperfection lies our greatest strength. It is in our messy, imperfect, and beautifully human selves that we can find true freedom, joy, and peace. We don't have to wait until we're good enough to be worthy of love or happiness. We are worthy now, just as we are imperfections and all. And that is something truly worth celebrating. When we embrace solitude, we step into a space where we no longer have to follow the well-worn paths laid out by others. The beauty of being alone, of finding moments where we are free from external influence, is that we are gifted with the rare opportunity to choose our own direction. In these quiet, introspective moments, we can begin to ask ourselves some powerful questions. What do I truly want? What does my heart yearn for, independent of what anyone else expects or wants from me? In a world that often pushes us to follow a specific formula for success, whether it's the career path we're supposed to take, the way we should look, or the milestones we must achieve, it's easy to feel trapped, as though our life is a series of obligations we must fulfill. But in solitude, we reclaim the freedom to design our own lives, to step off the path that others have carved and create a new one that is uniquely our own. There is incredible freedom in knowing that we are the authors of our own stories. We get to write the narrative, choose the characters, and decide the direction. It's in solitude that we begin to see how much power we truly have over our lives. The pressure to live according to someone else's script fades, and we realize that at any moment we can rewrite the story, redirect our journey, and live in a way that feels authentic and true to us. This freedom doesn't just apply to big life decisions, though. It's also about the smaller, everyday choices we make, the way we spend our time, the people we surround ourselves with, the habits we cultivate. Each moment alone is a reminder that we have the ability to choose, and that every choice we make is an act of self-determination. We are not passive passengers in our own lives, we are the ones driving the car. The freedom to choose our own path also comes with a deep sense of responsibility. When we are alone, we can no longer blame anyone else for our circumstances. It's all on us. This might seem intimidating at first, but in reality, it's incredibly empowering. We are no longer waiting for permission from others to make decisions or seeking approval before we take action. We stand firmly in the seat of our own power, knowing that the life we are creating is a direct result of the choices we make, moment by moment. And here's the truth: there is no one right path. There's no single formula for success or happiness that works for everyone. Each of us is on a unique journey, and the beauty of solitude is that it allows us to embrace our own pace, our own rhythm, and our own dreams. When we are alone, we can finally hear what our soul is telling us, whether that's to take a leap of faith, to change direction, or to stay exactly where we are for a while longer. In solitude, we learn to trust our instincts and honor our own wisdom. The freedom to choose our own path means that we are no longer confined by the limits of others' expectations. We are free to define success on our own terms, to create a life that resonates with our values, passions, and desires. It's a freedom that comes from knowing that we don't need anyone's approval to live the life we are meant to live. We are the ones who get to decide what that looks like. So in those moments when you find yourself alone, remember that it is not a time of emptiness or isolation. It is. In the rush of life, it's so easy to get caught up in the past or the future. We dwell on what has already happened, replaying old conversations, regretting past decisions, wishing we could go back and do things differently. Or we're constantly looking ahead, always planning for tomorrow, chasing the next big milestone, the next accomplishment, the next phase of life. But in all that, we often overlook the one thing that truly matters right now: the present moment. When we take the time to be alone, we are given the gift of the present. We stop, we breathe, and we realize that everything we need is already here, in this moment. It's easy to get lost in the noise of our lives, but solitude creates the space for us to slow down, to step out of the constant cycle of striving and chasing, and to simply be. Think about the last time you truly experienced the present moment, not the moment you were thinking about what you had to do next, not the time you were worrying about what someone else might think, but the time when you were completely immersed in what was happening around you. Maybe it was the sound of the rain on the roof, the feeling of sunlight on your skin, or the simple pleasure of a cup of tea warming your hands. In those moments, there is no past, no future, only the richness of the present. And that's where the magic happens. When we learn to find joy in the present, we free ourselves from the burden of always wanting more. We stop believing that happiness is something we will find somewhere down the road once we've reached the next goal, crossed off the next item on our list. The truth is that happiness is always available to us, right here, right now. It's in the laughter of a friend, the beauty of nature, the quiet stillness of our own thoughts. It's in the simple, everyday moments that we often overlook when we're too busy chasing something else. In solitude, we are reminded that joy doesn't need to be big or dramatic to be meaningful. It's in the small things: the sound of birds singing outside your window, the satisfaction of a task completed, the sense of peace that comes from taking a deep breath and just being present with yourself. When we stop running, stop striving, and just sit with the moment, we realize that it is enough. It always has been. There is also a profound sense of freedom that comes with learning to find joy in the present moment. When we're not caught up in regrets about the past or worries about the future, we experience life as it is. We stop trying to control everything, and instead we learn to embrace life as it unfolds. We realize that we don't have to have everything figured out, we don't have to control every outcome, and we don't have to plan for every eventuality. We can simply be with what is, and in that presence we find peace. And here's something truly beautiful about the present moment: it's where we can begin to see the richness of our lives. We realize that the little things, the things we once took for granted, are actually the things that bring us the most joy. The laughter of children, the sound of a favorite song, the quiet of an early morning, these moments are the true treasures of life. They don't require any special occasion, any extraordinary circumstances. They are available to us all the time if only we take the time to notice. So when you find yourself alone, don't see it as a time of emptiness. See it as an opportunity to fully experience the present, to savor the richness of the now. In solitude, we learn that joy is not something to be chased, but something to be embraced in every moment, just as it is. It's already here, in the simple act of being, in the quiet beauty of the world around us, in the stillness of our own hearts. When we learn to find joy in the present, we realize that life is already enough, exactly as it is. As we stand in the midst of our busy lives, constantly pulled in different directions, it's easy to forget the power of solitude, the beauty of being alone with ourselves. But the truth is, solitude holds the key to unlocking so much within us: our inner strength, our capacity for self-discovery, our ability to embrace imperfection, and the freedom to choose our own path. In this stillness, we don't just survive, we thrive. By learning to be comfortable in our own company, by leaning into the quiet and allowing ourselves to simply be, we come to realize that happiness, peace, and fulfillment are not found in external things or in the constant need for validation. They are found within us, in the space we create when we choose to be present, to embrace who we truly are without fear or shame. So I encourage you to take the time to be alone, not as an escape, but as a chance to reconnect with yourself. Embrace your imperfections, trust your inner strength, and find joy in the simplicity of the present moment. You are enough, just as you are, and within the solitude, you have everything you need to live a life that is authentic, meaningful, and deeply your own.